Okay, so how to make a short sword. It's pretty simple. You're going to need a core. The most common options are PVC, filament wound epoxy pultruded tubing, which in our community you're probably going to have to order off the internet, and golf clubs. The FWEP, filament wound epoxy pultruded tubing, otherwise known as kite spar, is generally like the best option, but golf clubs you can find at thrift stores for like $2, and they're pretty light. They generally have quite a bit of a spring to them, which is bad, but it's overall like an acceptable core for the price. So what you want to do with this thing is measure its total length up to the head if you can. See that this one is about 34 inches. Take out that, yeah. And it's more likely to be about 33 and a half or 33. At the end of the handle here is going to be a chunk of rubber. So if you're not planning to build the factory handle into your handle, you should calculate that your core is about half an inch shorter than it actually is. 34 is a great length. That makes this club pretty much perfect because with an inch of padding on the end of the sword to make it strike legal as per the rules of play, and half an inch to make the pommel padded, words, you get a 35 and a half inches. So 34 is a great length. Really simple, easy to work with. I'm probably going to cut mine a little bit shorter because I like to over pad the ends of my weapon. I recommend doing this with any kind of saw with a metal blade on it, a blade made for cutting metal. Yeah, you can pick these up at Walmart for like $3 and change. So you just cut the head off and then you move on to the next part. Okay, so I've removed the head of my golf club and the core's length clocks in at 33 and a half inches, which is pretty much perfect. I thought I was going to keep the handle when I made that cut, but I'm kind of a perfectionist and I think that this is gross. So the easiest way to remove one of these is to take yourself a brand new razor knife, box cutter, whatever you want to call it, preferably one with the snappable blades, because everything that you're doing is going to dull this really quickly, and just being able to snap it off and have a clean blade is really nice. What I do is I make a slit along the length of the handle and then just pull it off. You can try peeling it, skinning it, that sucks. This is definitely the best way to do it. But when you're making this cut, you want to make sure not to cut too deeply. Because if you cut into your core, then you're going to cause it to be much, much weaker than it otherwise would. I mean, some of these golf clubs are made in different ways. Some of them are even solid, and then cutting the outside of it isn't that big of a deal. But a lot of these things, if you damage the core in any way, you really compromise the lifespan of your sword. In this one hand, it's kind of difficult. So, once you've got your cut, you just check to see if it's thick enough for the rubber to separate. If it's not, you just go back over your line again. Similarly to cutting leather, or how you're going to be cutting all of the pieces of foam in this build. Using light scores going layer by layer through the material. It's probably the best thing to do because it makes sure that your cuts are accurate, or more accurate than they would be otherwise. You know, if you just slide your knife through the foam and you're off by like a fucking millimeter, well, that sucks, right? So this prevents that. Here you can see I've removed the handle from the core by just making the slit and then pulling it off. It comes off in one nice piece. You could even reuse this on a handle, as a handle on something else. If you change your mind, you decide you want to put it back on, you can do that. I usually keep them just, it's a useful piece of shit to have laying around. Fortunately, the base of that one wasn't very thick, so it only changed the total length of my core by, what is that, a quarter inch, if that. You don't usually get so lucky. Some wise men might even say that it would be a much better idea to remove the handle before cutting the core, but I think those people have no sense of adventure. Anyway, it's really important on the cut of your core to make sure that your edges are smooth and round. When I made this initial cut, it was very jagged, they're uneven, there's just like a, you know, a mountain of stuff sticking up on this side. The rougher your core is, the more uneven the cut, the faster it's going to chew through your foam. We're going to put a layer of microcell foam on this to help prevent it from chewing through anything at all. But over time, the core always beats out the foam, and the softer you can make it, smoother, rounder, the better. The longer your sword's going to last. So, to protect the core, or to protect the foam from the core, here's the microcell foam I was talking about. I'm pretty sure it's a microcell foam. Anyway, I'm not a scientist. It has a lot of names: foamies, crafties, whatever. You can find it at Walmart, any craft store, in packages of like 12 to 20, or yeah. Different brands have different qualities. This is the Foamies brand, which I really like because it's durable, it's kind of spongy, and it's 3 millimeters, I think, which is slightly thicker than the knockoff brands. For those who don't know, 3 millimeters is slightly less than 1/8 of an inch, which will be important in the construction of this sword. The foam we're going to be using later on, Camp Pad, also known as blue foam, is advertised as 1/2 inch in diameter, but it's actually 3/8. Very few commercially sold foam products are actually sold as the dimension that they're labeled. I think it just has something to do with the foam changing shape over time after it's produced. Anyway, you'll need an adhesive to put this foam on the core. Some people use tape. I think tape should only be used where absolutely necessary. But you know, if you're lazy and you're afraid of chemicals, feel free to do that. Just it's not as good. This is 3M's Super 77 multi-purpose adhesive. It's really important when using any adhesive that you're not intimately familiar with, or sometimes even ones that you are familiar with, to read the directions. So this says to shake can well. I just shaked it, not well enough, so I'll shake it again. You know, check the nozzle, blah, 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 blah. Hold the can 6 to 8 inches away from the surfaces to be sprayed and apply a uniform coat of adhesive. 4. Allow adhesive to dry until tacky, and then apply sufficient pressure to ensure complete contact. Super important. Some people mess up those steps, particularly the part about waiting for the glue to become tacky. If you don't wait for it to become tacky, it's going to form a weaker bond and likely just stick to itself, which does create an adhesive layer between the foam, but what you're actually looking for is cohesion. What you want is for the glue to create electron bonds between the two substances. You don't actually want, it's not just like something that's really sticky and gets into the pores and holds them together that way. It's not what you're going for. So you want as light a layer as possible while being fully covered. That way you're actually bonding the two materials. See, I didn't check the nozzle and spray it off to the side. So 6 to 8 inches away. Ideally you would just do single passes, but I'm kind of a weirdo about it and do whatever I want. The most efficient way is to just do a single pass over. I mean, you know, do another one if you need to, but don't load it back and forth. And again, you want to make sure that you get it on both materials. Every surface that you want bonded needs to be completely covered. You'll notice I've used quite a bit here. I wouldn't recommend using that much, but I don't think it's going to harm anything. It's going to make me have to buy more glue. See, it's already sticking here, even though I didn't wait for it to become tacky, because this shit is amazing. And you might think, oh, that means I can just do it and stick it together. No, that will create a really weak bond, and you just don't want to do that. Once you've waited for the glue to become tacky, like that, like you touch it, it's tacky, but it doesn't leave a residue on your skin. Take your core, lay it on your foam as best you can, keeping it straight. It's not a big deal if you don't adhere the foam to the core perfectly straight. You'll just have to correct for it later. What I like to do is lay it on the edge and then roll the core onto the foam. That usually keeps it pretty consistent. You're going to want to press down on the foam as you go to make sure it's actually sticking to the core. It needs complete contact. Anywhere that it's not down on the core, it won't be adhered, and then it creates a bubble. That bubble breaks and it compromises the lifespan of your sword from the inside, which is awful because you won't even know until it's too late. Okay, so that's all you do. It's just one layer. Make sure that it's all the way around. Like you'll see here, it's not quite touching. Make sure that it completely touches the other piece of foam. And then you remove the rest of it. You can do this by waiting for the glue to dry, and then you can just tear off the rest. It'll come off easily, and this part should be bound to the core so strongly that you won't have to worry about removing it. You can accelerate the process of drying by using a heat gun, or really just a conventional hair dryer set on a hot setting. I don't have either of those, so I'm going to use a knife to remove it. Cutting through this tacky ass glue and this foam, which is actually pretty like a rough, coarse thing on the inside, really dulls blades. So again, recommend the snappable 28 cents Walmart fucking thing. So you just cut it off and move on to the next part.